Whenever I share this story, people are incapable of discussing it with me. Can any of you? By Icongrology. I haven't shared this story from my childhood that many times over the years, but whenever I did, it just went completely over everyone's head. They wouldn't even acknowledge what I said about what I saw. They just fixated on all the unimportant details and they missed the entire fucking point. In a nutshell, and before I start from the beginning, something bad happened. And afterwards, I witnessed something unnatural. I don't know what it was, nor can I explain it. I just hope that this time around, it will be different. And some people will actually understand what I want to discuss. The actual supernatural event that I experienced. I know for a fact that this happened sometime between 2001 and 2003. Probably not in 2001, but I always say 2001 to 2003 because that's when I lived abroad. I was around 11 or 12 years old and I didn't get much of a say at what my parents signed me up for. They signed me up for catechist. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically like some religious class where they teach you about the Bible and that stuff, but boring as hell as it wasn't all bad. My school didn't host this type of class. Instead, we had to go to the local church, where they had this adjacent building just for that. What that meant was, most of us kids attending were usually from my actual school. Now, I have to take a moment to talk about this kid, Marvin. Apparently, he used to attend the same school before I moved there, but I was told he'd been expelled earlier that year because he brought a large knife, which belonged to his dad, to school. Now, he wasn't crazy or anything. He just thought the knife was cool, and he wanted to show it around. He didn't think about what he was doing. I don't know why he attended those catechism classes, but he wasn't a regular, and his parents weren't even paying to have him there. They kinda just dropped him off for a few hours, and the teachers, they were older ladies. They just didn't have the heart to tell him to fuck off, so it was kinda sad. Whenever he was around, we'd be laughing our asses off. One teacher once asked us a very simple question. Something like, what did Moses do, or who was Judas? But no one felt like answering. So this guy, Marvin, he raises his hand and the teacher hesitates. And then she says, "Yes, Marvin?" To which he replies with the straightest face ever, "I watched The Exorcist last night." We all fucking lost it. Well, everyone except the teacher, obviously. But when we had to attend Mass was when Marvin did everything he could do to make us laugh. You know the kind of crap that like Bart Simpson pulls on The Simpsons every time he goes to church? It was just like that. And the worst part was that everyone's parents would be there as well, in addition to the teachers. One time, a teacher berated him for chewing gum during Mass and told him to get rid of it. So he took it out of his mouth, stuck it to the sole of his shoe, and she looked back at him like, "Jesus Christ, not like that." So he put it back in his mouth. The face she made was just priceless. Then he stuck the chewing gum inside his nose and stretched it from one nostril to the other pretending it was a piercing. He kept trying to look at me, and all I could do was bury my face in my hands as I cried with laughter. It was too much, seeing the teacher trying to stop him, as the bubblegum dangled from his nose and while he snorted like a pig. That was fucking Marvin. Problem child, without a doubt, but funny as fuck. So the actual thing happened during a trip with our catechism class. It wasn't just my class, but with a few others as well. So, like, about 20 to 30 kids in total. Marvin wasn't even supposed to go because his parents hadn't paid for his share of the trip, but he showed up on that morning as we were all getting onto the bus. I'm sure his mother worked out something with the teachers, like promising to pay them later, but he ended up going anyway. So, we went to some monastery, I think. Or maybe it was just an old church of sorts, but all I know is that there were a bunch of nuns, and the place was literally in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like, no joke. Took us like 2 to 3 hours just to get there, and it was fucking overkill considering our age and how underwhelming the whole thing turned out to be. There was just this big old building, and nothing around for miles. You know, a big-ass house, like, from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The location was exactly like that. Like, you had this big church, or whatever it was, and there was nothing around but fields for all that the eye could see. There was a forest nearby, with a few abandoned, derelict houses in it. We get there. We have our first look around, and then it's lunchtime. We're told we can go outside and eat if we want to, and of course, most of us boys just want to do it, just seeing it as an opportunity to fool around and get away from the teachers. On that morning in particular, our group must have had around 4 to 5 boys. Including me, there was Marvin, obviously, and at the very least, 2 other kids as well. We each take out our lunch and we go explore the forest. We find a bunch of big-ass rocks and we sit down and eat. From there, we can see this abandoned shed or garage. Not sure what it was. The whole thing was falling apart and we were smart enough not to go too close. So instead, we picked up some pebbles and started chucking them at it. We were just having some harmless fun and venting out our frustration. Now, before I continue, it's essential that I describe the layout of the place. You see, right behind this abandoned shed thing, there was a wall. It stretched, I believe, a few miles to the right and to the left. I'm not sure what was on the other side, maybe like private property or something like that, but the important thing here is there was this abandoned shed that was literally built against the wall, and its height was the exact same as the walls. So, if somehow someone managed to get on top of the shed's flat roof, you could just easily drop down to the other side. From where we were standing, we could see the wall on both sides of the shed, but not behind it, because, again, the roof of the shed was just the exact same height as the wall, so it completely covered it up. As I was saying, we were having fun, throwing some rocks, and then our attention turned to the roof. Eventually, we started gathering rocks, and one by one, we started throwing them at it, trying to see who could throw them to the other side. You know, the roof was made of one of those cheap plastic metal plates, so we could always tell by the sound of our rocks hitting the mark. So we're having that stupid kind of fun that all boys that age can relate to, and fucking Marvin says, "Hey guys, look what I've got." The second I looked at Marvin and saw what he was holding, I just knew it spelled trouble for all of us. Like I said, there was nothing wrong with Marvin. he just simply wanted to have fun and make others laugh. But unfortunately, he had no fucking clue when to fucking stop and not cross that line. It's like his brain couldn't distinguish from having fun to something that could actually be dangerous and harmful. While the rest of us boys weren't making that big of a deal about the game, Marvin went out of his way to find the biggest fucking rock he could get in his hands. We looked at each other, and we knew something that big would probably be asking for too much trouble. But hey, what could any of us say or do? It was fucking Marvin, after all. It was almost like a dick measuring contest. From the moment Marvin brought out this big-ass rock, everyone just gave up. Still, Marvin kinda backed himself into a corner, because now all the eyes were on him. He actually had to go through with it. Not that he had any other attention from the get-go, but yeah. I can't really recall the size and the shape of the rock, but it was big. Maybe like slightly smaller than a handball, but it had to be carried while thrown using both hands, so bottom line, that shit was fucking heavy. The first time Marvin threw the rock, it landed nowhere near the shed. Not to worry though, for Marvin was the king of overdoing it. He promptly picked up the rock and walked straight towards the shed, getting way closer to it than any of us. It was no longer a game to him, you see. He just wanted to throw the fucking rock over the roof. He grabbed the rock, stretched out his arms, and began spinning around and around, trying to mimic miserably an Olympic throw. Marvin let go of the rock, which easily landed on the roof this time around, causing a tremendous and loud fracas. But that's when it all went wrong. The angle and the momentum of the throw he made the rock bounce across the flat metal surface, and it ended up falling over the other side. I held my breath as soon as the rock was out of sight, but I still tried to picture and follow its trajectory like I knew it felt somewhere behind the shed. But then I heard the sound. We all did. But we knew something was off. Something didn't make sense. And my brain knew exactly why the moment I heard it. From the roof to the ground to the other side, the rock must have fallen at least a 10-foot height from where I stood, and I could clearly tell that the sound happened slightly before the rock should have hit the ground. The rock did land on the ground right afterwards, but that first throw, that soft yet crunchy thud, that wasn't the rock hitting the dirt, but something along the way. I had barely processed this when I heard that terrible fucking scream. Someone was screaming bloody fucking murder. It was literally all we could hear. It was as if someone was yelling right in our ears and filling our heads with it. And never in my life have I ever heard such a deafening, painful, horror-filled cry. But I guess that's appropriate of a response to have when a big fucking rock drops out of nowhere on your fucking skull. As soon as we heard it, we all did the same thing without a single word or look between us. We turned the fuck around and we ran for our lives. We ran until we got back inside the building where the teachers and the other kids were having lunch and hanging out, and out of breath we just all split up and went around a room. We started chatting with the other kids, like we were subconsciously trying to establish a crappy alibi for ourselves. And I shit you not, we never exchanged a word. Only a few worried looks here and there, but we never talked about it between us. Ever. But it's crazy how we all ended up doing the exact same thing. I mean, I guess it's normal. We knew we'd fucked up big time, and we didn't want to get in trouble. And I was so fucking scared. Even though I hadn't even done anything, I was dreading from the fucking moment someone would just burst through the door asking questions, saying that someone had been badly hurt, and, well, that just never happened. The rest of the day, it just went as scheduled. We got back onto the bus, and we head back into the city. I still expected a teacher or something to say anything in the follow-up class, like that they'd been informed of some accident or that there was going to be an investigation to be taking place, but nothing happened. So we just simply pretended we never did it in the first place. It still took a good fucking few months before I could finally breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that we were all in the clear. I kept checking the news, as much as a young kid could anyway, and I was still worrying about phone calls, but yeah, that's all I could think about for endless nights. As I pictured in my head, there was some poor old guy in the massive fields with a fucking caved-in skull, unable to move and get help. But this isn't about him, or Marvin, or that big rock of his. This is about the unexplainable thing that I saw that day. As we ran from the gut-wrenching scream, heart pumping, cold sweat enveloped me because I saw something. I saw something on the ground to my left. It's hard to describe it, but it sure as hell wasn't normal by any means. Realistically speaking, it just didn't make any sense. The ground of the forest was covered in unkempt grass, which reached, like, somewhere right below my knees. And what I saw, I can only describe as, like, a single parting of the grass. Like, picture a field in your mind right now. Imagine that someone would strike said grass with, like, a 10-foot whip. That exact hit from the whip would create a split between the grass, right? Well, that's exactly what happened. Except there was nothing that could have caused it. I thought about snakes, or maybe a rabbit that got scared and dashed through it, but that just can't be. I'm talking about a invisible straight line, like maybe 10 or even 15 feet long, that suddenly and instantly parted through a section of grass. Just in half, without a sound. Like something just cut through that specific length of space in the blink of an eye. It wasn't even a gradual thing at all. It just happened one moment. The grass was normal, and next there was this huge-ass split in it. Like, no animal could do that. And yeah, my brain was all worried about getting the fuck out of there, and away from that scream, and out of the trouble, so I just never stopped running. But I know what I saw, and I know it wasn't a natural occurrence. So, to this day, I don't know what to make of it. And this is the part that I still get pissed off about. Like I said, in the beginning, I never told this story that many times for obvious reasons. But whenever I did, everyone I talked to seemed to miss the entire point. They're like, but did he die? Did the guy die? Did he get through? What about the guy? Is he dead? And it's like that every fucking time. I keep telling them I saw something. I keep telling them about the grass and how it just parted. I keep telling them about the grass and how it just parted itself. I keep telling them about the otherworldly event that I personally witnessed, and they just all ignore that specific part of the story. All they do is ask the stuff that doesn't matter, like, at all. But did he die? But did he die, though? Dude, did he fucking die? It's like this peculiar bit didn't reach their ears or their brains somehow. It just got filtered out. All that information just gone. So, I just stopped bringing it up. Some guy I used to hang around with once pulled a dick move and asked me in front of a bunch of people to tell the story about that one time where you killed some guy. And I keep telling him, that's not what this is about. All they could do was ask about the guy, though. Or just ask for more funny Marvin stories, but that's it. Not a fucking word regarding what I saw. It's been years since I'd last told anyone about this because, well, that's what happens whenever I do. It made me feel like I was fucking crazy. But I figured I could throw this one out on here and hope to get a genuine answer. A helpful reply for fucking once in my life. Just, if you guys could just not ask about the guy, please. Thanks.